The war had been going on for 237 years. In the grand meeting hall of the Galactic Council, 7 species sat together and tried not to show their fear. They had fought with everything they had. They had thrown millions of ships into battle. They had watched billions of their people die, and still they were losing. Commander Velcris of the Velkari stood before the council chamber. His 4 eyes moved across the holographic display that showed the current state of the galaxy. Red zones marked Krath territory. Once those red zones had been small dots on the far edge of the galaxy. Now they covered nearly half of all known space. "We have 47 cycles left," Velcris said. His voice was calm, but everyone in the room could hear the truth behind his words. 47 cycles before the Krath Empire reaches our core worlds. After that, our civilizations will cease to exist. The Draknor representative, a massive warrior named Kronak, slammed his fist on the table. "Then we fight harder, we breed more soldiers, we build more ships. We have tried that for 2 centuries, said the Cynthian delegate. Her mechanical voice held no emotion, only fact. The Krath reproduce faster than we can kill them. Their mind link allows perfect coordination. They do not fear death because they are all one consciousness. We cannot win this war with our current resources." Silence filled the chamber. They all knew she was right. The Krath were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. They were not just an empire. They were a single vast mind spread across trillions of bodies. The Krath overmind controlled every soldier, every ship, every drone. When one Krath died, the overmind simply learned from that death and adjusted. The Krath did not make the same mistake twice. They were perfect. They were unstoppable. And worst of all, they consumed everything. Every world the Krath conquered became another feeding ground. Every species they captured was turned into mindless drones. Their bodies changed and their minds erased. The Krath did not want to rule the galaxy. They wanted to absorb it. "There must be something," said Ambassador Kalresh of the Quarini people. Her translator crystal glowed softly as she spoke. "Some weapon we have not tried. Some tactic we have not considered." "We have considered everything," Velcris replied. "We have analyzed every battle. We have studied their patterns. The Krath adapt to everything we do. They learn. They improve. We are fighting an enemy that gets stronger with every defeat we give them." The Prithian scholar, an ancient being named Sorakel, raised one thin hand. His species were the oldest in the council, keepers of knowledge going back millions of years. "Perhaps," he said slowly, "we are looking in the wrong direction. Perhaps we need something the Krath have never encountered before, something they cannot predict because they have no data on it." "What do you suggest?" asked the Aventi spiritual leader. "We have contacted every known species in the galaxy. Everyone who can fight is already fighting." Sorakel's eyes flickered to a datapad. "Not everyone," he said. "Our scout ships detected something interesting 3 cycles ago. A new species, one we have never contacted before. They are in the Orion Arm, far from the main shipping lanes." "A new species?" Kronak leaned forward. "What are they like? Are they strong? Do they have advanced weapons?" "No," Sorakel admitted. "They are quite primitive, actually. They only achieved faster than light travel a few months ago. Their bodies are weak compared to most species. They have no natural armor or weapons. They are short-lived. By our standards, they should not have survived their own planet." "Then why waste time on them?" the Cynthian delegate asked. "Because," Sorakel said, "they come from what we classify as a death world. A planet so hostile that evolution had to make them incredibly adaptable just to survive. And because we are desperate, any ally is better than no ally." The council debated for hours. Some argued that contacting primitive species was against council law. Others said there was no point in recruiting warriors who would die in their first battle. But in the end, desperation won. They had 47 cycles left. What did they have to lose? Velcris was chosen to make first contact. His ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel near the 3rd planet of a small yellow star. His sensors immediately lit up with activity. The planet was covered in lights. Thousands of satellites orbited it. Radio signals filled the space around it. For a primitive species, they were very noisy. "This is Commander Velcris of the Galactic Council," he broadcast on all frequencies. "We come in peace. We request communication with your leaders." The response came within minutes. Every weapon on the planet pointed at his ship. Every satellite turned toward him. But no one fired. That was interesting. They were cautious but not aggressive. A human voice came through his translator. "This is the United Defense Coalition of Earth. You are the first alien contact in human history. Please maintain your position. We are sending a diplomatic shuttle." Velcris waited. He studied the planet below. It was a beautiful world, blue and green and white. It was also terrifying. His sensors detected massive storms, earthquakes, volcanoes, and temperature extremes that would kill most species. How did anything survive down there? When the humans arrived, Velcris tried not to show his disappointment. They were small. They had thin skin that would tear easily. They breathed oxygen and water, like many species, but they had no backup respiratory system. One good hit would kill them. They looked fragile, but their eyes were interesting. Human eyes moved constantly, taking in everything. And when they looked at him, he saw something unexpected. They were not afraid. They were curious. The leader of the human delegation was a woman named Secretary General Maria Santos. She sat across from Velcris and listened as he explained the situation. He told her about the Galactic Council. He told her about the war. He told her about the Krath Empire and how they consumed entire worlds. When he finished, Santos was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "How long do we have before the Krath find Earth?" "If they continue at their current pace, they will reach your space in approximately 20 years, but they will find you eventually. They always do." "And if we refuse to help?" Velcris met her eyes. "Then you will face them alone, and you will lose." Santos nodded slowly. "I need to speak with our world leaders. Give us 72 hours. Those 72 hours felt like an eternity to Velcris. He watched the news broadcasts from Earth. He saw humans arguing, debating, fighting about what to do. Some wanted to help. Some wanted to hide. Some wanted to prepare to defend Earth alone. They were chaotic. They could not even agree among themselves. But when the 72 hours ended, Santos returned with an answer. "We will help," she said. "Not because we have no choice, but because it is the right thing to do. If there are species out there fighting for their survival, then Earth will stand with them." "You understand that many of your people will die?" Velcris asked. "We understand," Santos said, "but we also understand what happens if we do nothing. If the Krath are as terrible as you say, then someone has to stop them. It might as well be us." Velcris felt something strange. It might have been hope. It was a feeling he had not experienced in a very long time. Within weeks, Earth assembled its first military fleet for space combat. 12 ships, 50,000 soldiers. It was a tiny force compared to the millions already fighting. But it was something. As the human fleet prepared to leave Earth, Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the flagship, a vessel humans had named the Defiance. She looked at her crew. Young faces, scared faces, brave faces. "We are about to enter a war that has been going on for longer than human civilization has existed," she told them. "We are going to fight enemies we have never seen. We are going to face odds that are mathematically impossible to overcome, and we are probably going to die." She paused. "But we are also going to show the galaxy what humans are made of. We are going to fight harder than anyone expects. We are going to survive longer than anyone predicts. And we are going to make sure that when the history of this war is written, everyone remembers the day humanity entered the battle." The crew cheered. Velcris, watching from the communication link, felt that strange feeling of hope grow stronger. These humans were either very brave or very stupid. Maybe they were both. The human fleet activated their faster-than-light drives and disappeared into the stars. They were heading toward their first assignment, a supposedly safe position at a mining station called Theta 9. Behind them, Earth watched and waited. Parents held their children. Leaders prayed to their various gods. Scientists calculated the odds of survival. And far across the galaxy, in the dark heart of Krath territory, the Overmind noticed something new had entered the war. It was small. It was insignificant. It would be easy to destroy. The Overmind did not know that it had just made the biggest mistake in its existence. The galaxy was about to shake. Theta 9 was supposed to be safe. That was what the Galactic Council had promised. The mining station sat on the edge of a quiet sector where nothing had happened for months. It was the perfect place to let the humans get used to space combat, without actually putting them in danger. Admiral Sarah Chen did not believe in safe places. She had spent her entire military career learning that the moment you felt comfortable was the moment something terrible happened. But she kept her doubts to herself as the human fleet arrived at the station. Theta 9 was bigger than she expected. The station was built into an asteroid, with docking ports for hundreds of ships. The Council had 200 vessels stationed there, along with 5,000 soldiers from various species. Compared to them, the human force of 12 ships and 50,000 soldiers looked tiny. The welcome they received was polite but cold. The alien soldiers watched the humans with curiosity and barely hidden contempt. Chen understood why. To them, humans were newcomers who knew nothing about real war. In the station's command center, Chen met with Commander Drokar, a Draknor warrior who led the defense force. He was 3 times her size, covered in scales that looked like natural armor. When he spoke, his voice sounded like grinding rocks. "You will follow standard protocols," Drokar told her. "When the alarm sounds, you move to your assigned positions. You do not engage unless ordered. You do not break formation. You do not improvise. The Krath are defeated through discipline, not creativity." Chen nodded. She did not mention that human military history was built on improvisation. She did not mention that every major human victory had come from doing the unexpected. She simply said, "Understood, Commander." The next few days passed slowly. Human soldiers trained with alien technology. They learned about Krath tactics. They studied the enemy's weaknesses, which seemed few and far between. The Krath were strong, fast, and never stopped coming. They felt no pain and no fear. They were perfect soldiers. "How are we supposed to fight something like that?" asked Lieutenant Tom Rodriguez, one of Chen's officers. "The same way we fight everything else," Chen replied. "We find a way. Humans always find a way." The alien soldiers were not friendly, but they were not hostile either. They mostly seemed confused by the humans. The Draknor warriors thought humans were too small to be effective. The Cynthians thought human decision-making was too slow and emotional. The Velkari thought human tactics were too chaotic. Only the Preethian scholar who had come to observe the humans seemed interested rather than dismissive. His name was Orankal, and he spent hours watching the human soldiers. "You laugh a lot," he observed one day, "even knowing you are in a war zone." "Why?" Chen smiled. "Because if we do not laugh, we cry. Humor helps us cope with fear." "Fear?" Orankal tilted his head. "Most species try to eliminate fear through training or chemical enhancement. You embrace it?" "Fear keeps us alive," Chen said. "Fear makes us careful. The trick is not to let it stop us from doing what needs to be done." On the 6th day, the alarms went off. Chen was in her quarters when the noise started. She was dressed and running to the command center in seconds. All around her, soldiers rushed to their positions. The station shook as it went to battle alert. "Report," she shouted as she entered the command center. Drokar stood before the main display, and for the first time, Chen saw fear on an alien face. "Krath fleet," he said. 2,000 vessels. They came out of nowhere. Chen felt her stomach drop. 2,000 ships against their 200. It was a massacre waiting to happen. "Where did they come from?" demanded a Velkari officer. This sector was clear. "Our intelligence said—" "Intelligence was wrong," Drokar snarled. "It was a trap. They knew we were here." The display showed the Krath fleet approaching. Their ships were organic things, grown rather than built. They looked like giant insects made of metal and flesh. They moved with perfect coordination, like a single organism rather than individual vessels. "All ships prepare for combat," Drokar ordered. We will hold them as long as possible, then execute Retreat Protocol 7. Retreat? Chen stepped forward. We just got here. You are new to this war, human, Drokar said without looking at her. The Council does not throw away lives needlessly. When the odds are impossible, we retreat and regroup. That is how we have survived for 2 centuries. That is also why you are losing, Chen said quietly. Drokar turned to her, his eyes burning. What did you say? I said that is why you are losing. You have been retreating for 200 years. You calculated odds and made smart decisions and saved lives. And every time you retreated, the Krath took another planet, another system, another billion lives. You understand nothing. I understand that someone has to make a stand, Chen interrupted. And it might as well be us. She activated her communication link to all human ships. All vessels, this is Admiral Chen. Prepare for combat. We did not come across the galaxy to run from our first fight. We hold this station, no matter what. You are insane, Drokar said. Probably, Chen agreed. But we are also human, and humans do not give up. The battle began badly. The Krath fleet hit them like a hammer. Council ships exploded in the first wave. The Krath did not bother with tactics or strategy. They just kept coming, wave after wave, overwhelming through sheer numbers. The human ships fought differently than the Council forces. They did not maintain perfect formations. They broke apart and attacked from unexpected angles. They used the asteroid field around the station as cover. They rammed Krath ships when they ran out of ammunition. On the station itself, Krath drones began boarding. They cut through the hull and poured inside, thousands of them. The Council soldiers fell back and organized retreat exactly as they had been trained. The human soldiers did not retreat. They met the Krath in the corridors and fought them hand to hand. They used mining equipment as weapons. They set traps using the station's machinery. They screamed and shouted and made noise, which confused the Krath drones who had never encountered psychological warfare before. Lieutenant Rodriguez and his squad held a critical junction against a wave of 50 Krath drones. They ran out of bullets and switched to knives. They ran out of knives and used their bare hands. When reinforcements arrived, they found Rodriguez and 3 of his soldiers still standing, surrounded by Krath bodies. "Why are you still here?" asked a shocked Draknor warrior. "You should have fallen back." Rodriguez, bleeding from a dozen wounds, shook his head. "Fall back to where?" "This is the line." "We hold the line." In space, the battle was equally brutal. The Defiance took hit after hit. Its shields failed. Its weapons overheated. Fires burned on 3 decks, and still Chen pushed forward right into the heart of the Krath fleet. "Admiral, we have to retreat," her first officer shouted over the noise of explosions. "No," Chen said calmly. She studied the display. There, in the center of the enemy formation, was a Krath dreadnought. It was coordinating the attack, directing the other ships. If they could take it out, all power to engines, she ordered. "Ram them." "Admiral, that is an order," Chen finished. "Everyone to escape pods. Now that is an order too." The crew rushed to obey. Within minutes, only Chen remained on the bridge. She strapped herself into the captain's chair and aimed the Defiance directly at the Krath dreadnought. "For Earth," she whispered, "and for everyone who cannot run anymore." She pushed the engines to maximum. The Defiance accelerated faster and faster directly toward the dreadnought. The Krath tried to shoot her down, but she was too close and moving too fast. At the last second, Chen hit the reactor overload button and ejected herself in an emergency pod. The Defiance struck the dreadnought at full speed. Its reactor went critical. The explosion was so bright it could be seen from 3 star systems away. The dreadnought exploded. So did the 11 Krath ships closest to it. The Krath fleet paused. For the first time in recorded history, they hesitated. Their coordination broke for just a moment. They had never encountered an enemy willing to sacrifice themselves like that. That moment was enough. The Council forces rallied. They pushed back. More human ships followed Chen's example, ramming damaged vessels into Krath formations. The tide of battle shifted. By the time the Council reinforcements arrived, the battle was over. The Krath fleet retreated. Theta 9 station was saved. The cost was terrible. 33,000 human soldiers were dead. 8 of the 12 human ships were destroyed. But the Council had won. For the first time in decades, they had actually defeated a major Krath attack without losing the field. Chen was rescued from her escape pod by a team of human Marines. They found her unconscious but alive. When she woke up in the medical bay 3 days later, She found Drokar standing beside her bed. "You are either the bravest being I have ever met," the Draknor commander said slowly, "or the most insane." Chen smiled weakly. "Can I be both?" For the first time, Drokar's lips pulled back in what might have been a smile. "Perhaps you can. You humans fight like you have nothing to lose." "We have everything to lose," Chen corrected. "That is why we fight so hard." News of the battle spread through the council like fire. Analysts studied the recordings in disbelief. Humans had held the line when every tactical calculation said they should have retreated. They had fought the Krath in close combat, which every species knew was suicide. They had sacrificed themselves to save others. The Velkari strategists could know 6 months after Theta 9, the galaxy was changing. It was subtle at first, like the first warm breeze before spring, but those who paid attention could see it clearly. The war was different now. Earth sent more ships, more soldiers, more weapons. 500 vessels joined the Council forces, along with 2 million human soldiers. It was still a tiny fraction of the total military force, but humans were no longer a curiosity. They were a proven asset. More importantly, they brought something the galaxy had forgotten: hope. In Council command centers, human officers sat beside alien commanders and asked uncomfortable questions. Why do we always retreat when outnumbered? Why do we not attack their supply lines? Why do we play by their rules? At first, these questions annoyed the veteran commanders. Then they started to think about the answers. The Velkari High Command created something they called human doctrine. It was not really a doctrine. It was more like organized chaos. Attack from unexpected directions. Use unconventional weapons. Never do the same thing twice. Make the enemy react to you instead of the other way around. Fight like you have nothing to lose even when you have everything to lose. Not every species could adopt human doctrine. The Cynthians found it too unpredictable. The Aventi found it too aggressive. But the Draknor loved it. So did the younger officers of every species. Finally, someone was teaching them how to win instead of just how to survive. General Marcus Reeves became the first human to command a mixed-species fleet. He was a tall man with gray hair and scars across his face from the Theta 9 battle. The Council gave him command of 50 ships and told him to defend the Crimson Nebula, a region rich in resources that both sides wanted. The Krath attacked with 300 vessels. By all calculations, Reeves should have retreated. Instead, he studied the nebula's unique properties. The gases there produced strange radiation that interfered with sensors. "We hide in the radiation clouds," Reeves told his mixed fleet of humans, Draknor and Velkari. "The Krath sensors will not work. They will be blind. We pick them apart one group at a time. The radiation will damage our ships too," warned a Velkari captain. "Yes," Reeves agreed, "but we know that going in." "They do not. Surprise is worth the damage." They executed the plan perfectly. Krath ships entered the nebula and immediately lost their coordination. Without their sensor network, they were just individual ships, confused and isolated. The Council forces appeared from the radiation clouds, destroyed a few Krath vessels, then vanished back into the mist before the enemy could respond. It took 3 days, but they destroyed the entire Krath fleet without losing a single ship. It was the first decisive Council victory in 30 years. When word reached the Council, the Velkari High Commander personally contacted Reeves. "How did you think of this tactic?" Reeves shrugged. "On Earth, when you hunt something bigger than you, you do not fight it directly. You use the environment. You be smarter, not stronger." The Battle of Crimson Nebula changed how the Council approached warfare. Suddenly, commanders started looking for advantages in terrain, in environment, in surprise. They stopped thinking about how to survive battles and started thinking about how to win them. But the greatest test came at Prethia Prime. The Prethian homeworld was sacred to the Council. It was the oldest civilization, the keepers of all galactic knowledge. Their libraries held information going back millions of years. If Prethia Prime fell, the galaxy would lose its history, its culture, its soul. The Krath knew this. They attacked with 5,000 ships. The defense fleet had only 800 vessels. Even with human doctrine, the odds were impossible. Evacuation began immediately. They would save who they could and abandon the planet. Dr. Sarah Kim, a human scientist, had a different idea. She had been studying Krath biology for months. The Krath were connected through a neural network, a form of telepathy that linked every drone to the overmind. That connection made them strong. But Dr. Kim thought it might also be a weakness. What if we could disrupt that connection? She asked Admiral Chen, who was leading the defense. How? Chen asked. Electromagnetic pulse, Dr. Kim explained, but not the kind we normally use. A pulse specifically tuned to the frequency of Krath neural patterns. It would be like static in their shared consciousness. It might not kill them, but it could confuse them. Might? Chen raised an eyebrow. I have never tested it on a large scale, Dr. Kim admitted. But if it works, then we buy time for the evacuation. Chen nodded. Do it. Dr. Kim and her team worked for 3 days straight. They built the EMP generators and placed them around the planet. When the Krath fleet arrived, they triggered all the devices simultaneously. The effect was immediate and spectacular. Krath drones on the ground stopped moving. They stood frozen, twitching, their connection to the Overmind severed. Krath ships in orbit spun out of control as their pilots lost coordination. For the first time in galactic history, the Krath were alone in their own minds. The confusion lasted only 20 minutes before the Overmind adapted and restored the connection. But 20 minutes was enough. The Council fleet counterattacked while the Krath were disorganized. They destroyed 1,000 enemy vessels before the Krath could respond properly. The remaining Krath fleet retreated. Prithia Prime was saved. The Council honored Dr. Kim with the Light of Preservation, the highest civilian award. She accepted it with typical human awkwardness, saying, I just saw a problem and tried to fix it. That is what scientists do. But the Prithian elders understood the deeper meaning. She gave us back our future, Elder Sorakel said. How can we ever repay such a gift? As victories accumulated, human culture began spreading through the Council. Soldiers from other species started listening to human music before battle. They read human stories about warriors and heroes. They learned human phrases like never surrender and against all odds. A Cynthian analyst tried to understand this phenomenon. Human culture emphasizes individual struggle against impossible circumstances, she reported. Their stories celebrate defeat as much as victory, as long as the struggle was honorable. This should make them pessimistic. Instead, it makes them more determined. But not everyone was happy about humanity's influence. Some council members worried that human doctrine was too costly. Humans took casualties at 3 times the rate of other species. They volunteered for the most dangerous missions. They treated death as acceptable if it achieved the objective. They are burning themselves out, warned a Quarini diplomat. At this rate, there will be no humans left in 10 years. Admiral Chen heard this concern and addressed it in a speech to the council. You are right, she said bluntly. We are dying. We take risks that seem insane to you. But let me tell you something about humanity. We have been dying since we first crawled out of the ocean. Our entire history is one long struggle against extinction. Predators, disease, ice ages, famine, war. We have faced extinction 100 times, and every time we survived because we refused to give up. She looked around the chamber. You want to know why we fight so hard? Because we learned long ago that survival is not given. It is earned, and we would rather die fighting than live as slaves to the Krath. The chamber was silent. Then slowly the Draknor delegation began a slow rhythmic beating on their chests. It was their gesture of respect for warriors. Soon other species joined in their own ways. Even the Cynthians, who rarely showed emotion, tilted their heads in acknowledgement. Human doctrine became official council policy. The Krath Overmind was learning too. It studied every human battle. It analyzed human psychology. It tried to predict human behavior. But humans remained frustratingly inconsistent. They retreated when they should attack. They attacked when they should retreat. They sacrificed themselves for no logical gain, then survived situations that should have killed them. The Overmind increased its focus on human targets. Special Krath units were created specifically to fight humans, but even these elite drones struggled. Humans adapted too quickly. What worked once never worked twice. Deep in Council intelligence, analysts made a concerning discovery. The Krath had a Nexus station, a massive hub that controlled 40% of their military operations. If they could destroy it, the entire Krath network would be disrupted. The problem was that the Nexus was defended by 10,000 Krath ships. It was the most fortified position in the galaxy. Attacking it would be suicide. When Admiral Chen saw the intelligence report, she smiled. That smile made her staff nervous. They knew what it meant. "Get me a meeting with the Velkari High Commander," she said. "I have an idea." "Admiral," her first officer said carefully, "that station is impossible to attack. Every simulation shows total defeat." "Every simulation assumes we fight logically," Chen replied. "But we are human. We do not fight logically. We fight to win." 2 weeks later, Chen stood before the full Galactic Council. She presented her plan to attack the Nexus station. The council members listened in growing horror. "You are describing a suicide mission," said the council fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Nexus system. 3,000 ships, the largest armada ever assembled by the Galactic Council. On the bridge of every vessel, commanders stared at their displays and felt their courage waver. The Krath Nexus station was enormous. It was not just a space station. It was an artificial moon, built over centuries, covered in weapons and shields. Around it orbited 10,000 Krath vessels in perfect defensive formation. The station itself pulsed with a sickly green light, like a massive beating heart. "By the ancestors," whispered a Velkari captain. "We are attacking that." Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of the Indomitable and studied the enemy formation. She showed no fear, though her heart was racing. Fear was natural. Showing it was not allowed. Leaders did not get to be afraid. "All ships, this is Admiral Chen. You all knew what we were getting into. The Krath have numbers. They have perfect coordination. They have defended this station for 200 years. She paused. "But they have never faced all of us together. They have never faced an enemy that refuses to quit. Today we show them what happens when the galaxy fights back. Today we end this." Before anyone could respond, the Krath fleet attacked, 10,000 ships moving as one. It was beautiful in a terrible way, like watching a natural disaster. The Krath did not waste time with warnings or demands. They simply came to destroy. The first wave hit the Council fleet like a tsunami. Explosions bloomed across space. Ships died before they could even return fire. Within the first hour, 400 Council vessels were destroyed. "We are losing," reported the tactical officer. "We expected that," Chen replied calmly. "Execute Plan Theta." The Council fleet split into 3 groups. It looked like a retreat, which is what the Krath expected. But instead of running away, each group attacked from a different angle. The Krath had to divide their forces to respond. Their perfect coordination became a weakness when they had to defend 3 positions at once. Human ships led each attack group. They used every trick they had learned. They hid in debris fields. They used fake signals to draw Krath ships out of position. They rammed damaged vessels into enemy formations. It was chaos. It was unpredictable. It was very human. The battle raged for hours. Space became a graveyard of broken ships and scattered debris. Commanders on both sides screamed orders. Soldiers died by the thousands. And still the fighting continued. On the Indomitable, Chen watched the tactical display. They were making progress, but too slowly. At this rate, they would be destroyed before reaching the station. They needed something to break the stalemate. "Commander Park," Chen called. "Is the special weapon ready?" Commander Jessica Park looked up from her station. She was young, barely 30, but she had proven herself in a dozen battles. "The resonance bomb is ready, Admiral, but someone has to deliver it to the station's core. The shields are too strong for missiles." "I know," Chen said quietly. "Assemble a strike team. Volunteers only," Park nodded. She knew what Chen was really saying. This was a one-way mission. Whoever went to plant the bomb would not come back. Within minutes, Park had her team. 50 soldiers from different species. Humans, Draknor, Velkari. Even 2 Synthians who had learned to value sacrifice over logic. They all knew the odds. "They all volunteered anyway. Why are you doing this?" Chen asked Park privately before the mission launched. Park smiled. It was a sad smile, but genuine. "Because someone has to. And because I want the people who come after us to live in a galaxy without the Krath. That is worth my life." Chen wanted to argue. She wanted to find another way. But she knew Park was right. Sometimes the only way forward required sacrifice. "Then go with my blessing and my thanks. The galaxy will remember what you did." "Tell them to make it count," Park replied. "Do not waste our sacrifice." The strike team launched in small, fast shuttles. They dodged through the battle using larger ships as cover. Krath fighters chased them, but Council ships sacrificed themselves to keep the strike team safe. One by one, the shuttles were destroyed. But each time the survivors regrouped and kept going. By the time they reached the Nexus station, only 2 shuttles remained. Park's shuttle and one other. They crashed through the station's outer hull and into its interior. The inside of the Nexus was like a nightmare. The walls were organic, covered in pulsing veins that carried fluid throughout the structure. Krath drones poured out of side passages trying to stop the intruders. The strike team fought their way deeper, leaving bodies behind with every corridor. Park carried the resonance bomb herself. It was a human invention, designed by Dr. Kim after studying Krath neural patterns. The bomb would not destroy the station with explosions. It would send a massive pulse through the Krath neural network, disrupting the connection between the Overmind and every drone in the sector. They reached the core chamber. It was vast, filled with organic machinery that pulsed with the Overmind's consciousness. Park could feel it pressing against her mind, trying to break in, trying to understand her. "Set the bomb," she ordered her team. "We have 5 minutes." But the Krath were not going to give them 5 minutes. Drones poured into the chamber. The strike team formed a defensive circle around Park while she armed the weapon. One by one they fell. A Draknor warrior named Krovan took a blast meant for Park. He fell with a smile on his face. "For the future," he said with his last breath. A Velkari soldier named Seltara held off 20 drones single-handedly. "Tell my children I fought well," she said before the Krath overwhelmed her. Park worked frantically, her hands steady even as her team died around her. 4 minutes. 3 minutes. 2 minutes, the last of her team fell. Park was alone, surrounded by Krath drones closing in. The bomb was almost ready. Almost. "Come on," she whispered. Just a few more seconds. The timer hit 0. The bomb was armed. Park had 60 seconds to get to minimum safe distance. She looked at the approaching drones. She looked at the exit. She did the math in her head. She would not make it. "That is okay," she said to herself. "I never expected to." She activated her communication unit one last time. "Chen, the bomb is active. 60 seconds until detonation. Get everyone out of the blast radius. Do not wait for me. Park, you can still—" "No, I cannot," Park interrupted gently. "And that is okay. Just promise me you will finish this war. Promise me you will win." "I promise," Chen said, her voice breaking. "Good. Then I can die happy." Park pulled out her pistol and started shooting at the approaching drones. For Earth, for the galaxy, for everyone we have lost. The Krath drones rushed her. She emptied her weapon into them. When she ran out of bullets, she grabbed a piece of debris and kept fighting. She was still fighting when the bomb detonated. The pulse swept through the Nexus station like an invisible wave. It was not explosive. It was not destructive to physical matter. But to the Krath neural network, it was devastating. Every drone connected to the Nexus went dark simultaneously. 4,000 Krath ships simply stopped moving. Thousands of drones collapsed where they stood. For the first time in recorded history, the Overmind screamed. It was not a sound. It was a telepathic shriek that echoed across subspace. Every species with even minor telepathic sensitivity felt it. It was pain. It was confusion. It was fear. The Overmind had never felt fear before. Chen felt tears running down her face as she gave the order. "All ships attack now. Make their sacrifice count." The Council fleet surged forward. The Krath, without coordination, without the Overmind's guidance, fought as individuals for the first time. They were still dangerous, but they were no longer perfect. They made mistakes. They hesitated. They lost. The battle turned into a slaughter. The Council destroyed thousands of Krath ships. They tore apart the Nexus station piece by piece. Green fire bloomed across space as the station's core exploded. When it was over, the space around the Nexus was filled with debris and silence. 8,000 Krath vessels destroyed. The Nexus station gone. The Overmind's control network shattered. The cost was terrible. 1,200 Council ships destroyed. 2,700,000 lives lost. 43,000 of them were human, but they had won. For the first time in 2 centuries, the Krath Empire was in retreat. Chen stood on the ruined bridge of the Indomitable. They had taken heavy damage, but they had survived. She thought about Park, about Krovan, about Seltara, about all the soldiers who had died to make this victory possible. "Admiral," her communication officer said, "the Council is asking for your report." Chen nodded. She straightened her uniform. She wiped away her tears. Then she addressed the Council with a voice that did not shake. "The Nexus station is destroyed. The Krath fleet is broken. We have lost many. We have sacrificed much. But we have proven something important today. We have proven that the Krath can be beaten. We have proven that courage matters more than numbers. And we have proven that when the galaxy stands together, we are unstoppable. Across Council space, species that had remained neutral watched the battle recordings. They saw the sacrifice. They saw the courage. They saw humans fighting alongside aliens, dying for a cause greater than themselves, and they decided to join the war. Within days, 5 new species volunteered their fleets to the Council. Within weeks, 10 more. The Nexus battle had changed everything. The Krath were no longer inevitable. They could be stopped. They could be defeated. On Earth, billions watched 1 year after the Nexus battle. The war had transformed. The Krath Empire, once unstoppable, was broken into fragments. Without the Nexus station's coordination, different Krath fleets fought without unity. Some retreated to their core worlds. Others attacked randomly, like wounded animals lashing out. The Overmind was still alive, but its perfect control was shattered. The Galactic Council launched Operation Liberation. The goal was simple: reclaim every conquered world, free every enslaved species, and end the Krath threat forever. It was the largest military campaign in galactic history. Humanity led 60% of the offensive operations, not because the Council asked them to, but because humans volunteered. They had seen what the Krath did to conquered worlds. They had seen the drone chambers where living beings were converted into mindless slaves. And they were determined that no more species would suffer that fate. Admiral Sarah Chen, now the most decorated soldier in Council history, stood before a massive holographic map. Red markers showed the last Krath strongholds. At the center, pulsing like an evil star, was Krath Prime, the homeworld, the source of the Overmind itself. "We have liberated 47 worlds," Chen reported to the assembled Council. "We have freed 6 billion beings from Krath control. But until we destroy the Overmind's core on Krath Prime, this war will never truly end. The Overmind will rebuild. It will adapt. It will return." "You are proposing we attack their homeworld," said Velcris, who had become Chen's closest alien friend over the years. "Every Krath in the galaxy will defend it." "I know," Chen replied. "That is why we need to hit them with everything we have. Every ship. Every soldier. One final battle to end this war forever." The Prethian elder Sorakel, now ancient even by his species' long standards, spoke up. "How many will die in this final battle?" Chen met his eyes honestly. "Millions. Maybe tens of millions. This will be the bloodiest battle in galactic history. And if we do nothing, then we condemn our grandchildren to fight this same war. Better we pay the price now than force future generations to suffer." The vote was unanimous. Every species agreed. They would attack Krath Prime. The Council assembled an armada that made the Nexus fleet look small. 8,000 ships from 12 different species. 3 million soldiers. It was more than an army. It was the combined will of a galaxy that refused to be enslaved. Earth sent 3,000 vessels, including veterans from every major battle. These were not fresh recruits. These were survivors. They had fought the Krath a dozen times and won. They knew the cost of victory, and they were willing to pay it one more time. The fleet gathered at the edge of Krath space. Soldiers from different species mingled on ships, sharing stories and promises to watch each other's backs. The tension was high, but so was the determination. Everyone knew what tomorrow would bring. Chen walked through the Indomitable's corridors the night before the battle. She stopped to talk with her crew. A young human pilot named Danny Lee, barely 20 years old. A Draknor engineer named Kralek who had fought alongside humans since Theta 9. A Synthian tactical officer who had learned to appreciate human, illogical courage. They were all scared. They were all ready. In the morning, the fleet jumped to Krath Prime. The Krath were waiting. 5,000 ships surrounded their homeworld, but more than that, the entire planet was a weapon. Orbital cannons, shield generators, missile platforms. The Krath had turned their homeworld into an impregnable fortress. The space battle began immediately. It was not tactical. It was not elegant. It was simply 2 massive forces smashing into each other with every weapon they had. Ships exploded by the dozen. Space became so filled with debris that navigation was nearly impossible. The Krath fought with desperate fury. They knew this was their last stand. The Overmind poured everything into the defense. For once, the Krath were not fighting to conquer. They were fighting to survive. But the Council had something the Krath did not understand. They had hope. They had courage. And they had learned from the humans that sometimes the only way to win was to refuse to lose. Admiral Chen led the main assault. Her battle group pushed through the Krath defenses at terrible cost. Ships exploded around her, friends died, but she kept moving forward, always forward toward the planet below. All strike teams, this is Chen. The way is clear. Hit the planet now! Hundreds of landing craft plunged through the atmosphere. The Krath tried to shoot them down. Many were destroyed, but enough made it through. Soldiers from a dozen species crashed onto Krath Prime and immediately engaged the planet's defenders. The ground war was brutal. Krath Prime was not like other worlds. The ground itself seemed alive. Buildings were grown from organic matter. The air was thick with spores that tried to infect invading soldiers. And the Krath drones were everywhere, defending their home with suicidal fury. Human soldiers fought side by side with Draknor warriors and Velkari commandos. They had trained together. They had bled together. Now they would win together or die together. Chen led a combined strike team toward the Overmind's core facility. Intelligence suggested it was deep underground, in a chamber that had existed for millions of years. That was where they needed to go. That was where the war would end. They fought for 3 days to reach the entrance. Every meter was purchased with blood. But they kept pushing, kept fighting, kept refusing to quit. Finally, they broke through to the underground chamber. What they found defied description. The Overmind's core was not a machine. It was not even truly alive in any recognizable sense. It was something between organic and mechanical, a massive consciousness that filled an entire cavern, and it spoke to them, not with a voice. With thoughts that appeared directly in their minds. Every soldier felt it pressing against their consciousness. You are chaos, the Overmind said. You are entropy. Your existence violates the fundamental laws of efficiency. You should have failed. Your biology is weak. Your technology is inferior. Your coordination is imperfect. Yet you persist. Explain this paradox. Chen stepped forward. She felt the Overmind's massive intelligence studying her, trying to understand. You really want to know? She asked aloud. Yes, because we choose to. You are perfect. You are efficient. You are logical. But you are also alone. Every Krath is just part of you. They have no choice. They have no individuality. They are perfect slaves. Chen's voice grew stronger. We are messy. We are chaotic. We make mistakes. But we are free. And freedom, the ability to choose, is worth any cost. Even death. The Overmind was silent for a moment. When it spoke again, there was something new in its thoughts. Something that might have been confusion. Or curiosity. Or even respect, I see, it said. I have spent millions of years pursuing perfection. But perfection is static. It does not grow. It does not change. You are imperfect, but you evolve. You adapt. You improve through struggle. This is why you defeated me. Yes, Chen said simply. This is interesting. I have learned something new. For the first time in my existence, I understand that I was wrong. There is value in chaos. There is strength in choice. You have taught me this. Does that mean you will surrender? Chen asked. No, the Overmind replied. If I surrender, I cease to have purpose. If I cease to have purpose, I cease to exist. But I can give you a gift. When you destroy me, the knowledge I have gained will not be lost. I will release my drones from my control. Let them choose their own path. Let them experience the freedom you speak of. Chen felt tears in her eyes. She had not expected this. You are giving them a chance to live? I am giving them what you have shown me is most valuable. I am giving them choice, Chen nodded. She turned to her team. Set the charges. It is time to end this. They planted antimatter bombs around the chamber. The Overmind did not resist. It simply waited, perhaps experiencing what humans might call peace for the first time in its existence. Thank you, Chen said to the Overmind, for understanding, for letting them go. Thank you, the Overmind replied, for showing me that I was not complete. Even in death, I have learned. That it's satisfying. The strike team evacuated. The bombs detonated. The explosion was so massive it could be seen from orbit. The entire underground complex collapsed. The Overmind's final scream echoed across subspace, but this time it was not pain. It was almost like a song. And then silence. Across Krath Prime, across the entire galaxy, every Krath drone stopped moving. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then slowly they began moving again. But differently. not in perfect unison, not as parts of a single mind. As individuals, confused, scared, but free, the battle was over. The war was won, the cost was staggering. 124 billion council lives lost over the war's duration. 8 million human casualties, thousands of ships destroyed, entire planets scarred by battle. The galaxy would take generations to heal, but it would heal, because the threat was gone, because freedom had won. 50 years later, Admiral Sarah Chen stood in her garden on Earth. She was old now, her hair white, her body marked by scars and age, but her eyes were still sharp, still alert, still watching for threats that no longer existed. A young girl ran up to her.